On April 12, 1871, Texas made it a crime to carry a pistol, not to own one, to carry one. The statute named them one by one: pistol, dirk, dagger, slungshot, sword cane, spear, brass knuckles, bowie knife, and any other knife made or sold for offense or defense. First offense, a fine of $25 to $100 and the weapon forfeited to the county. Second offense, 60 days in jail. That law was still standing when Spindletop blew in 1901, when Mexia went under martial law in 1922, and when Borger grew from grassland to 45,000 people in 90 days. The law had 6 exemptions written into it. The men who worked the oil patch qualified for none of them. Number 5 came home from France in a soldier's duffel. Number 1 belonged to the man who built the wildest town in Texas. These are 25 weapons Texas oilmen carried in their coat pockets, in a state where carrying them was a crime. Hit subscribe. This list gets heavier the closer we get to number 1. Let's count them down. Number 25, the Robin Hood number 1. 7 shots of .22 rimfire, small enough to vanish inside a closed fist, from the Hood Firearms Company of Norwich, Connecticut. Here is what the buyer did not know. The barrel had no rifling at all. What it had were shallow notches cut around the muzzle to make a man peering down the bore believe he had bought a rifled gun. A fraud sold for pocket change. Under the statute, a fraud was still a pistol. $25, same as a Colt. Number 24, the Rattler. A 5-shot .32, nickel-plated, no serial number anywhere on the frame. It sits in collections across the country, and nobody knows who made it. That was not sloppy record-keeping. It was the business model. A jobber ordered guns by the crate, stamped whatever name he liked on the top strap, and sold them through hardware stores. The maker stayed invisible, something the law could confiscate but never trace back to the shelf it came from. Number 23, the Pathfinder. 5 shots of .32 rimfire, and according to Donald Webster, who cataloged this entire class of gun, the frame was brass, not steel. Brass. It shares enough with the Hood and Norwich guns that collectors put it in that family, but the maker has never been confirmed. A brass-framed revolver has a service life measured in cylinders, not years. Men carried them anyway, because a soft gun beat an empty coat on the walk home. Number 22, the Defender. Made by Johnson and By from 1873 to 1888, sold under at least 9 other names: Eagle, Eureka, Lion, Smoker, Old Hickory, Tycoon. The same gun, wearing whatever name the retailer wanted. Serial numbers ran to 99,000, then started over at 1. 1 gun, 9 identities, a serial number that meant nothing. The statute did not care what was stamped on the top strap. It cared where the gun was when they found it. Number 21, the Swamp Angel. Forehand and Wadsworth built this one, among the better guns in a class famous for being terrible. A 41 rimfire, available with a barrel as short as 1 1/4 inches. Sit with that, 1 1/4 inches. A gun engineered to disappear into a garment. The caliber, the finish, the stub of a barrel, all designed around a crime already 50 years old on the Texas books. Number 20, the Hopkins & Allen XL number 4. 5 shots of .38 rimfire, and the New York variant came with a barrel of 1 1/2 inches. That short a barrel is not a shooting gun, it is a carrying gun, and carrying was the offense. That is the thread through every entry from 25 down to 20. None were bought new in the oil patch. Built in the 1870s and 80s, they rode into Borger half a century old, handed down or off a pawn shop shelf. The law did not care about age for 1 second. Now, about that law, because the wording is the whole story. The act made it an offense to carry any named weapon on your person, in your saddle, or in your saddlebags. Then it listed who was exempt: a man on his own premises, a man at his own place of business, a peace officer, a militiaman in service, a civil officer on duty, a traveler carrying arms with his baggage. Notice what everyone assumes: a fixed address, a settled trade, a place that belongs to you. A roughneck had none of it. He slept on a rented cot in a shack he did not own, in a tent city that had not existed 6 months earlier. He worked leased ground and walked to the field before dawn and back after dark. He did not have the exemption, not one of the 6. One more thing. The record is strong on what the law banned and what these weapons were. What rarely survives is this man, this gun, this pocket. So this list is what was in reach and in the statute in the years the oil came in, and where an account names a specific gun in a specific field, I will say so. Back to the countdown. Number 19, the slungshot. A lead weight wound into a knot called a monkey's fist, tied to a short cord. Sailors invented it to throw mooring lines. Shorten the cord, and it becomes a flail you swing out of a coat pocket. Abraham Lincoln's most famous criminal case, the Almanac Trial of 1858, was a defense against a killing done with one. Its use as a criminal weapon ran into the early 1920s, squarely into the boom towns, named in the statute by that exact word. Silent, cheap, and a man could make one in an evening. Number 18, the Arkansas toothpick. A long, heavy, dagger-type blade that appears throughout 19th century arms law as its own type, alongside the bowie knife. Here is the part that mattered. The statute named the bowie knife, then added a clause that swallowed everything else. Any other knife manufactured or sold for the purposes of offense or defense. Read that again. The test was not the shape of the blade or its length. It was what the man who made it or sold it intended it for. A law reaching through the counter into the seller's mind. A deputy did not have to identify your knife. Only decide what it was for. Number 17, brass knuckles. Linked rings or a bar of metal with holes for the fingers, made for one job, turning a fist into something that breaks bone. Copel's survey of 19th century arms law groups them with the dirks, daggers, sword canes, and slungshots. The category legislatures went after by name rather than description. No moving parts, no ammunition, nothing to jam. A man could carry a set through a full shift, and nobody knew until he closed his hand. Number 16, the sword cane. A slender blade concealed inside a walking stick. Draw the handle and you have 3 feet of steel where a second ago there was a gentleman's accessory. This is the only weapon here a man could carry completely in the open and still be committing a crime. Nobody stopped a man for holding a cane, which is why the legislature named it. The statute was not written against violence. It was written against concealment, and the cane was concealment perfected. Number 15, the dirk. Mark Zaleski, publisher of Knife magazine, describes American dirks as small stabbing weapons, usually small daggers, sometimes single-edged. The formula running through 19th century law was bowie knife plus dirk and dagger, covering fixed blades suited to fighting. Here is the detail that mattered. The category did not include pocket knives. So the line he judged, in a dark camp in front of a deputy who might be on somebody's payroll, was whether the thing on his belt was a tool or a weapon. Guess wrong. Lose the blade and pay the fine. Number 14, the dagger. The dirk's partner in the statute, and the one with no defense at all. A dirk could pass for a utility blade. A dagger could not. 2 edges, a point built for thrusting. No plausible use on a rig floor. Every state that copied the Texas formula copied this pairing, and Texas held it longest. The knife provisions were not lifted until 2017, 146 years. A man fined in Muhaya in 1922 was fined under a law that outlived his grandchildren. Number 13, the Iver Johnson Safety Automatic. Not automatic and no manual safety. A top-break double-action revolver with an internal transfer bar designed by Andrew Fireberg in 1896, sitting between hammer and cartridge until the trigger came all the way through. In 1904, the company launched the campaign that made it famous. Hammer the hammer. The pitch was that you could strike the hammer with a mallet and it would not fire. $6 put a safe, fast reloading revolver in a workman's pocket, and in Texas it put a misdemeanor there with it. Number 12. The U.S. Revolver Company guns. Iver Johnson built these too, from overrun parts of the second model safety hammer automatic. Same factory, same quality, one difference. The grips were stamped U.S. instead of the owl's head that marked the company's own line, and they never appeared in any Iver Johnson catalog. If you wanted a pistol that did not exist on any shelf in your county, arriving by post wearing no maker's name, this is what you sent away for. Number 11. The Harrington and Richardson Hammerless. Harrington and Richardson formed their partnership in 1876, and by the 1890s had a 5-shot .32 hammerless of their own, patented in 1895. Then there is the record keeping. H&R used run-on serial numbers and kept, in one historian's phrase, so-so records. Dating an individual H&R revolver is close to guesswork even today. An ambiguous serial, no reliable ledger. For a man who wanted no paper trail back to his coat, that was not a defect. That was the feature. Number 10. The Smith & Wesson 32 Safety Hammerless. The company called it the New Departure. Everyone else called it the Lemon Squeezer. For the grip safety, Daniel B. Wesson ran down the backstrap, which had to be squeezed before the trigger moved. Internal hammer, 5 shots, no spur to catch on the lip of a pocket. 242,000 of the 32 versions were built between 1888 and 1937. The 2-inch version had its own nickname, the Bicycle Revolver, because it rode invisibly in a coat. Smith & Wesson built a gun around not being seen, and Texas had made not being seen the crime. Number 9. The Remington Model 95 Double Derringer, designed by William H. Elliott under an 1865 patent. 2 barrels, over and under, 41 short, 11 ounces, and a muzzle velocity around 425 feet per second, slow enough you could nearly watch it go. $8, and it stayed in production unchanged from 1866 to 1935. 132,000 of them. Remington reorganized several times across those years, so the serial sequences repeat. 2 guns, same number, different decades. Here is what it actually cost to enforce a carry law in towns that did not want it enforced. Moo-hai. Oil came in 1920, and the population went from 4,000 to figures reported as high as 50,000. On January 12, 1922, Governor Pat Neff declared martial law and sent the Rangers and the Guard. Over 300 arrests. Borger. 45,000 people within 90 days of the lots going on sale. In the spring of 1927, Governor Dan Moody sent Rangers under Captains Frank Hamer and Tom Hickman. Hamer is reported to have told the governor it was the worst organized crime he had ever seen. Kilgore, August 1931. Governor Ross Sterling sent 1,200 National Guardsmen. 3 governors, 3 boom towns, 10 years. And the same statute on the books the whole time, while the state sent soldiers to make anything stick at all. Back to the list. Number 8. The Savage Model 1907, designed by Elbert Searle at Utica, New York, aimed straight at Colt's pocket pistol business. Striker fired, and what looks like a hammer is a manual cocking lever. Its whole argument was capacity. 10 rounds of .32 against 8 in the Colt. In a pocket gun of that era, 2 extra rounds was a serious sales pitch. Where carrying either was a misdemeanor, the difference between 8 and 10 was still worth paying for. Number 7. The Colt Model 1908 Vest Pocket. 13 ounces, a 2-inch barrel, chambered in 25 ACP. Browning designed it, and Colt sold it on exactly one idea, that it would ride unnoticed in a waistcoat. 420,000 built between 1908 and 1948. Read the name again. Vest Pocket. Colt was not being coy. The product name told you where to put it, and that was what Texas had made illegal 57 years before the gun existed. Number 6. The Colt Model 1903 Pocket Hammerless. 572,000 built for the civilian market across 42 years, 8 rounds of 32 ACP. It has a hammer. Colt hid it under the rear of the slide and called the gun hammerless anyway, for pure function. A shrouded hammer does not catch on a coat pocket when a man is pulling it in a hurry. That is an engineering decision about a specific act. Colt spent money solving the problem of drawing a concealed pistol quickly and sold $500,000 into a country where much of the map said you could not. June 26, 1934. Public Law 474. Roosevelt signed the National Firearms Act, and the Roughnecks problem stopped being a county matter. Congress could not ban weapons outright, so it taxed them. Machine guns, silencers, shotguns and rifles with barrels under 18 inches, $200 on each transfer. A working shotgun cost around $20 in 1934. The tax was 10 times the price of the gun, not revenue. A wall, and everyone involved said so. Handguns were in the early drafts and came out before the final vote, so the pistol in a Texas coat pocket stayed where it had been since 1871. But the ground had shifted, and the last 2 weapons sit on either side of that line. Number 5. The Luger brought home from France. A contemporary account of the boom records what the field looked like once the money arrived. Murder and robbery made it dangerous to be out there unarmed, and residents and oilmen began carrying pistols. 3 kinds are named: squirrel rifles, pistols left over from Civil War days, and German Lugers brought back from France by doughboys. Sit with that. A man goes to Europe in 1917, survives the trenches, takes a German officer's sidearm off a battlefield, carries it home across an ocean, and 4 years later it rides in his coat on a dirt road because the walk to the boarding house is not safe. He had every right to bring it home, no right to carry it there. The statute had no exemption for what a man had done overseas. He did not have it, and neither did the trophy. Number 4. The Civil War holdover. Same account, same sentence. Pistols left over from Civil War days. Do the arithmetic. The boom hit in 1920. A pistol left over from the Civil War was at minimum 55 years old. Cap and ball guns, or percussion revolvers converted decades earlier. Guns already obsolete when Texas passed the carry law. These were not choices. A man carried a Civil War revolver because it was the pistol that existed in his family, and the oil field had suddenly made carrying one feel necessary. The law was indifferent to all of it. No exemption for age, none for sentiment, none for the fact that the thing barely worked. It was a pistol, and that was the entire test. Number 3, the Bowie knife. The weapon the act was built around. Every state that wrote one of these statutes wrote it with the Bowie knife in view. Nobody wrote down how many rode into the oil fields, but the reasoning has not changed in 200 years. A knife does not misfire, does not run out, and does not announce itself. And it is the longest running item here. Texas kept its Bowie knife restriction after dropping almost everything else until 2017. Spindletop came and went. Mexia boomed and shrank. Borger settled down, and the knife law was still standing. Number 2, the sawed-off shotgun. This is the one entry where Texas was not the problem. Rifles and shotguns sat outside the act entirely. A roughneck could walk down the main street of Borger with a full-length shotgun on his shoulder and break no law. Then he cut the barrel to 18 inches so it would fit under a coat, and everything changed. Before June 26, 1934, that was a modification. After, it was a federal matter, and a $200 tax on a gun worth $20. That is the whole logic of this list in one object. The gun was legal, the shortening was legal, the concealment was the crime. Length was all that stood between a tool and a felony. Number 1, the Colt 45 in the Borger post office. Asa Philip Borger platted his town site in March 1926 and sold the lots himself, grossing more than $1 million within 6 months. 45,000 people came. He watched the Rangers arrive and martial law come down after the district attorney was murdered in 1929. On August 31, 1934, Borger was collecting his mail at the city post office. Arthur Huey, the county treasurer, whom Borger had refused to bail out of jail, walked in, shouted obscenities, and shot him 5 times with a Colt .45. Lloyd Duncan, farm boss for the Magnolia Petroleum Company, was hit by the same shots and died 5 days later. An oilman, killed standing in a post office line. The Carthage Evening Press of September 1st, carrying the Associated Press report, describes what came next. Less than a minute later, Huey stepped out of the building carrying 2 pistols and asked bystanders to call the sheriff. He pleaded self-defense, and the jury acquitted him. 2 pistols walking out of a post office, in a state where carrying one had been a misdemeanor for 63 years. The man who built the wildest boom town in Texas died in the town he named, in a room holding more concealed handguns than the law allowed. He did not have the exemption either. Every town on this list is quiet now. Ranger dried up. Desdemona went back to grass. Mexia shrank toward the size it was before the Rogers well came in. Borger became a refinery town and stayed one. The law outlasted all of them. That 1871 statute stood for 124 years and was not repealed until Senate Bill 60 in 1995, which created the first handgun carry permit in Texas history. For over a century, Texas said a working man could not carry a weapon off his own property. And for over a century, in every boomtown the oil made, working men carried them anyway. Not because they were criminals, because the law had written 6 exemptions and had not written one for them: a coat pocket, a doorway, and the moment between them. So which one would you have had on you, walking into Borger in 1926? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more of the history nobody put in the textbook, subscribe.